The soft glow of the streetlights bathed the quiet park in golden light as Jungkook and Vine strolled side by side. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching under their feet as they made their way down the empty paths. Vine clutched a steaming cup of coffee. Jungkook had insisted on buying her. Her free hand tugged into the pocket of her coat. You really didn't have to bring me out here, Vine said, though her tone lacked any real annoyance. It's freezing. Jungkook glanced at her, his hand shoved into his hoodie pocket, the hood pulled up over his head. You said you liked autumn walks. Thought I'd be a good husband and make it happen. Vine snorted. A good husband would have brought a blanket and a thermos of tea. Jungkook stopped in his tracks, turning to face her with an exaggerated look of offense. I buy you coffee, bring you to a park, and you still find reasons to complain? You're impossible, Vine. She grinned, taking a sip of her coffee as she walked ahead. Maybe I just like keeping you on your toes. He caught up with her in a few quick strides, matching her pace. Is that what this is? Some kind of test? Vine shrugged, a playful glint in her eyes. Maybe. Are you failing? Jungkook suddenly reached out, plucking the coffee cup from her hands and taking a sip before she could stop him. Hey, she protested, trying to grab it back, but he held it out of her reach. He smirked infuriatingly, smug. I think I passed, he said, taking another sip and handing it back to her. Vine glared at him, though her lips twitched with the effort to hide a smile. You're ridiculous. Ridiculously charming? Jungkook shot back, winking. Before she could respond, he reached out and gently tugged her closer by the lapel of her coat, his voice dropping to a softer tone. Admit it, you're having fun. Vine looked up at him, her cheeks warming despite the cold air. Maybe, she said quietly, her smile turning shy. Jungkook grinned, his gaze lingering on her face for a moment before he slipped his hand into hers, their fingers intertwining. Good, because I'm not done spoiling you yet. Vine looked down at their intertwined hands, her heartbeat quickening at the warmth of his touch. She had always been good at masking her emotions, but Jungkook had a way of slipping past her defenses, disarming her with his easy confidence and quiet sincerity. Is that so? She asked, tilting her head to look at him. What else do you have planned, mighty husband? Jungkook smirked, his eyes glinting under the soft glow of the streetlights. Wouldn't you like to know? She raised an eyebrow, pulling her hand from his and crossing her arms. If it's another one of your spontaneous ideas, I should at least be prepared. The last time you dragged me somewhere, we ended up on a Ferris wheel in the middle of a storm. Jungkook chuckled, the memory clearly amusing him. You screamed the whole way down. It was cute. Vine glared at him, though her lips betrayed a small smile. I thought we were going to die. You're lucky I didn't throw you off the seat. Admit it, he said, stepping in front of her and walking backward, his hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets. You loved it. You're still here, aren't you? She rolled her eyes, but the warmth in her chest grew. Barely. You're exhausting, you know that? Exhausting? He repeated, feigning offense. I prefer thrilling or irresistible. Vine laughed, shaking her head. You keep telling yourself that. Jungkook stopped abruptly, causing her to bump into him. Before she could step back, he reached out, his hands landing gently on her shoulders to steady her. His expression shifted, the teasing grin softening into something more serious. You know why I do these things, right? He asked, his voice quieter now. Vine blinked up at him, caught off guard by the change in tone. Why? Because you deserve moments like this, he said simply, his dark eyes searching hers. Moments where you can just laugh and forget about everything else. I like seeing you happy, Vine. Her breath hitched at his words, and she suddenly found herself unable to look away from him. You're too good at this, you know, she whispered. At what? He asked, tilting his head. Making me feel things, she admitted, her cheeks flushing. Jungkook's lips curved into a slow smile, and he took a step closer, his hands sliding from her shoulders to rest lightly on her waist. Good, he murmured, his voice low and warm. That's the plan. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rustling leaves and the distant hum of the city. Then, with a gentle hug, he pulled her closer, his forehead resting lightly against hers. Can I kiss you? He asked, his breath warm against her lips. Vine's heart raced, her voice barely audible as she nodded. Yes. He didn't hesitate. His lips met hers in a kiss that was both tender and deliberate, his hand steadying her as if she might slip away. Vine melted into him, her fingers curling into the fabric of his hoodie, as the world around them disappeared. When they finally pulled apart, Jungkook stayed close, his forehead still touching hers. Still think I'm exhausting? He teased, a soft chuckle escaping him. Vine smiled, her cheeks flushed as she looked up at him. Maybe, she said, her voice light but her eyes full of warmth. But I think I can live with it. Good, he said, his grin returning, because I am not going anywhere.